Welcome. Welcome everyone. Welcome to TypeParis, live from Paris. Every Wednesday we will have light talks with designers and type designers, typographers. So I will invite you to visit the website typeparis.com. And we are also very honored to have with us Nadine this evening, who works for Monotype and who is an expert in legibility for Arabic, but also Latin, Chinese also, characters, a little bit of Chinese characters, like a little bit of everything. So a true expert. We are very lucky to have her tonight, and I guess you will talk about Arabic characters tonight. So please welcome Nadine.
Merci. Hello, and I always wanted to say this. Salut tout le monde. Wow, I have to work on my French. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for Jean-François and everybody else from TypeParis for inviting me to teach and to speak tonight, and also for the wonderful organizers at this space here. So today's presentation is about engaging with the Middle East. I have to start with a disclaimer. Every time I give this presentation, I start with a disclaimer that any political views that I express in this presentation are my own and not Monotype's. We are a fund foundry, we don't do politics, or representative of anybody here. So this, I speak for myself. The reason why I have to say this disclaimer, because I subscribe to the view that we cannot talk about design without its relationship to culture and politics. That's in general. And then when we talk about the Middle East, given the state of the way things are, and I don't think you guys need an introduction on that, I think it's even more crucial that we engage in understanding design within the wider context of culture and politics. So speaking of politics, we start with this. So this is not even my typeface, but I made this, you know when, and so this is in French, English, Deutsch, German, Spanish, Italian, Catalan, Portuguese, and the last one is Arabic. And the reason I did this is because obviously the nature of the event itself, which I am completely against, and but also to say that there are more views. I'm sorry, we go very serious very quickly. It gets lighter later on, so just like breathe, it's okay. Also, I have to breathe. So it's just that we need to address the way we look at the world and the Middle East, and us as Arabs, the way we are perceived and the way we deal with the Western culture. I think we need to engage more in dialogue. The reason, this is not usually part of my presentation, but we are in Paris today, so I thought we need to bring this up. So I have a question for you guys. How many of you are engaged in visual communication? By show of hands. Okay, so I also, so practically everyone. And I subscribe to the view that we are not simply designers. We are citizens first, and then we are designers second. And when we are living in a state like today, we as communicators need to be part of the channel of communication. I know that when we are in our jobs, we get requests for custom type, for a logo, for whatever it is, and that is our daily job. But I think we also have the capacity to communicate ideas, sometimes on a very emotional level, sometimes on a very rational level, but we are able to communicate, sometimes very simply in a very powerful way. And this is important because we have that as a skill, as an ability. And to be a designer today means, at least for me, that we need to engage with these issues. There's a lot of miscommunication. We need to engage in more dialogue. On my part, as an Arab, I need to engage as a moderate with the rest of my community, but I also need to show another version of what being an Arab is to those who are not Arabs, so that we engage in this dialogue of civilization. I'm going to get to that later, but yeah, so at least I take this opportunity to invite you guys to look at these issues so that we are not just designers by job, but communicators as citizens as well. Things that we believe in, we need to communicate about, because this is a state of war. It's coming to us on our borders here and in Lebanon as well, and we cannot leave it to politicians to do the job. We need to engage on a one-to-one level. So that was the bit. So now we get a little bit more into, we're going to be switching between design and politics. So yeah. So now we get a little bit about Arabic. So, and type, and at least script system. So how many of you are familiar with the Arabic script? Again, by show of hands. Okay, so not bad actually. So, so a little bit about Arabic. I explained the writing system. Arabic is written from right to left, and then the numerals are written from left to right. We have 29 consonants. I'm not going to read them to you, you don't need to know them, but basically there's 29 consonants. We also have the feature that Arabic is partially joining. Usually people will tell you that Arabic letters connect to each other, but in reality, not all of them. So some of them will connect, but some of them are antisocial and will not connect to what comes after. The orange ones are the antisocial. So when these come in the middle of a word, the letter that comes after, it's almost like you're starting a new word, okay? So it's a partially joining script as well. We also have a kind of system where the vowels, there's two kinds. We have long vowels, and then we have short vowels. The long vowels are written as part of the text. These are the top line. And then the lower line shows the same letter, the thing that looks like a plate with a dot below, that's the B. And above and below, you see the marks. These are the short vowels. So ba, bu, bi, that kind of thing. These are not usually written in the text, but these are our vowels anyway. Another interesting feature of Arabic is that it's freckled. So Arabic has a lot of dots. Like in Latin, you have the I, the J, and the basic Latin, right, that have the little dots. In Arabic, you know, like 2/3 are dotted. And it's very easy for type designers because you draw one, and then you put dots above and below, and suddenly you have like 20 other ones. So, like really, it's nice. So you have the B, the T, and the Th. That's what you see on your right. And again, it's the same form, and the position and the number of dots is the one that changes the letter itself. And then on this side is the jim and the ha and the kha. And then again, it's the same structure, and the dots are what are changing the letters and distinguishing them. And now we switch back to culture. So, the mental image of an Arab. People always laugh when I show this. So, yes. So we are the usual suspects. Whenever anything bad, it's like always us. And every once in a while, there will be a terrorist attack, which is not us. And like, at least for me, I'm like, oh, thank God. So yeah, because like, how much worse can your image get, right? So, and you have like, you're still an Arab, right? So, one time I was attending the Daily Show, the taping, and there was a woman, and I was like telling her I'm Lebanese and like I'm an Arab. And she's like, really? You don't look like an Arab. You look really nice. I was like, so like I didn't know, like, am I supposed to be, is it an insult or a compliment? Like, I don't know. And I was like, oh, okay, so yeah, let's just change the topic. So we don't have a good image, and when things go bad, we're the usual suspects. But on branding side, the camels are the usual suspects, like literally. If you have a lot of Middle Eastern, but also Western companies designing for the Middle East, so branding agencies, and then they want to do a logo, and they're like, yes, you know, the symbol is the camel, because they have camels. So we need the logo of this company that has nothing to do with camels or desert or anything transportation related, needs to have the camel as the logo, because, you know, so this is like saying the logo for every German company is the eagle. So, you know, so this is the equivalent, and so it's a lot of fun, and so you see it everywhere. But that's the, yeah, so there's usual suspects culturally, branding wise, so this is like a little mix between the two. The other one is the desert, obviously. They think like the whole Arab countries are all, you know, covered in deserts. I give this presentation in many countries, and so again, we need a poll by show of hands. Who of you have seen Mission Impossible 4? Okay, so not bad, because in some countries, like, nobody likes, you know, Tom Cruise, and some other countries like a lot. So yeah, and sorry for the people live streaming. It's, yeah, we can't take your poll. But anyway, tweet us. So So in this movie, so Tom Cruise and his gang, they are in Moscow, and then there is something they need to retrieve and like find, and it's in Dubai. So first they are in Moscow, you see like the, you know, the Red Square and all of that, and then they are in a plane, high tech, and then suddenly they are in a convertible car, you know, the roof is down, they're driving in the middle of a desert, it looks like this, like long desert road, and then you see in the distance the skyline of Dubai, and like, you know, but this is not how people arrive in Dubai. So usually you're on a plane, you land at the airport, you go through customs and immigration, and then you go out, you get a taxi, you go to your hotel. Like that road is not even the road from the airport to the hotel, like to that, you know, downtown. It's just like somewhere in the middle of a desert, and like literally, it's just the middle, like there's no way they could have arrived there, but you know, it's Dubai. They need to say, like, look, we're in the desert, it's exotic, look. So, and then, you know, to make it worse, they just put a sandstorm. And since that movie, there's a curse on Dubai, they keep getting really big sandstorms, like in the movie, but they never had that before, and now it's very common. So I think like Tom Cruise's popularity has dipped since then. So anyway, so this is again interesting because when you think of design, so it's not just Hollywood that thinks that, you know, the Middle East is full of desert, or the Tour Eiffel can be seen from every window in Paris, obviously. So, like, you know, in every apartment, you guys know, you open the window and the Tour Eiffel is always there, like the moon. And, you know, it just looks romantic. And there's always, like, violin playing in the background. And, yeah, anyway, of course, the sounds of Paris. So, yeah, like, also, like, design-wise. So you're designing for a company in the Middle East. And, again, the color scheme, yes, we want to use sandy color schemes. Yes, because, oh, like really, is, you know, is like Europe, the color scheme is green because there's a lot of nature. Like, is that it? But like, no, like they take it very seriously. Like, no, this is for the Middle East, they have a desert, we need to go for sandy colors. As if like you cannot have any other color. So there's a lot of these like kitschy kind of design solutions, which are a little bit like an easy, like the first idea that comes to you. So I think to be fair, if you're designing for the Middle East, just always trash your first idea and then just go for the second or third. So I don't know. But yeah, it's just always interesting to think of these, you know, images. So speaking of Dubai, so this is what it looks like, right? This is two of the Emirates. It's actually full of high rises and towers, and like it's very urban and like very modern and glossy, and everything is new, and they're, you know, you barely see any old buildings, and it's very glossy and shiny and exotic, and you know, so it doesn't look like the desert, even though it used to be the desert, but they've managed to build something else out of it. So that conception that we are still living in tents, it doesn't exist anymore. Some people still do, but for the majority of us, we live in like buildings with a roof. So you know, some of them more fancy than others, but yeah. And then. If we just go a little bit, like 1 hour flight away, I guess, would be Yemen. And Yemen has a very different architectural style. So when we're looking here, it doesn't have the kind of sophistication that you get in Dubai, but then it has this gorgeous kind of architecture, which looks very Islamic, very traditional, very nice, very small. Unfortunately, some of this was actually destroyed. So this is like World Heritage Site, and like, I don't know how much of it, but several of its buildings were destroyed in a Saudi attack last week, which is not nice. I mean, they can bomb other things. They don't have to bomb the nice stuff. It's like somebody bombed, you know, like Notre Dame, no? That wouldn't be nice. So, yeah. Anyway, so, but, you know, you get a feel that this is a different kind of an Arab city. And then we go to Jordan, it's a little bit more in the north. And then again, the urban fabric there is very different. This is starting to look more like Beirut. They are closer to us. Very tight. When you go to Beirut, and but like I cannot compete with pizza. Am I a good designer enough to compete with pizza? That's an existential question. That's my tweet. Don't steal it. That's my tweet. I want to tweet this. Somebody tweet on my behalf. Yeah. No, tweet it. It's okay. Yeah, it's fine. It's okay. That's my gift. So she needs to win. Yeah. Okay. So when we think of Beirut, and I have usually many images, but I try to take some of them out. Beirut is always celebrated as the party capital of the Middle East. It keeps making the lists of places you need to go to and like partying. And we have a nightclub with 7 stars, burned down actually a couple of weeks ago, but. Yeah, it's just it's a series of unfortunate events these days. But anyway, this is something that Beirut is known for. So very different from many of the other Arab cities, but we also have things like these. This photo won the 2006 World Press Photo Competition or something like that. This is right after the Israeli invasion of Beirut and the bombardment of the south of Beirut. And what you see here in the foreground, it looks like this is a Photoshop job, right? It looks like the foreground and the background have nothing to do with each other. The foreground is very modern. It looks quite Western. The girls are cool and they have the glasses and some of them even blonde. And then, yeah, oof. And then, yeah, and then in the background you have complete destruction of urban spaces. So, but this is all of it Lebanon. And when we speak of Lebanon, there is not one Lebanon. There are many Lebanons. We have different areas. We even speak different dialects, and we have different views of our relationship with the Arab world and our relationship with Mother France and our relationship with the West and the US. So there's a lot of internal dialogue regarding that. And so we are not just one. And I think the reason why I show all of this stuff is when we want to engage with the Middle East, there is not one Middle East. There are many. It's almost like saying, yeah, I want to engage with Europe, but yes, the French are different from the Germans, for sure, yeah? And from the Spanish and the Italian, and each one has its own cultural history and habits and the way they like to do things and how often they kiss. Even the kissing is different. In German, it's 2. In France, it's 2, but no handshaking. And then in Holland, it's 3. In Spain also 2. So, you know, so even the most basic things of how you say hello to each other, they are different across these countries. Also in the Middle East, in Lebanon, you kiss 3 times. In Saudi, I think they do something with the nose, or maybe in the UAE, they like these Smurfs, you know, they touch the noses. I think in the UAE, I don't remember. But anyway, so even us when we greet, all of this, there's a lot of variation. So, so when we think of the Middle East, it's not just one, it's a complexity. There are many, and there are interesting aspects, there are negative aspects. It's not so easy to be summed up like those terrorists or those idiots, or sometimes we want to think like, my God, what they're doing, but there is a complexity and many facets to looking at the Middle East. Fortunately for us, it's not all, you know, destruction and bombing and the horrors of day-to-day life. That is the case these days. We have a beauty of architecture. We have a long, interesting heritage looking at the architecture in the Middle East. Some countries have more than that than others. But there's a lot of inspiration. What we also have is a beauty in patterns. If you look, just Google the word arabesque, and there you see there's a lot of interesting patterns that the Arabs were really good at. So Islamic history in general, when you look, has very, very interesting patterns. So, and this can be easily modernized. It looks really cool. And so this is something that even for you know, non-Arabs designing for a not Arab client can use these patterns. So they're really, really interesting things. And also, fortunately for us, we have the beauty of letterforms. We have a long and very varied reach of Arabic calligraphy. The letterforms are gorgeous. There is more inspiration that we have the right to, you know, so many different styles and so many amazing things. It's just, you don't even know where to begin. So again, I invite you to take a look at that. It's just a view of the Middle East, which is, you know, slightly, well, no, infinitely more pleasant than what you see on the news. So, and this is where I come in, because I was studying Arabic typography at, in my graphic design years at AUB in Beirut, and we had a class with Arabic calligraphy, and just the beauty of it, it's completely enchanting. And the Arabic typography at the time was really bad. So there was this discrepancy between the two, and that's how I got into it. So there is that. But there is a question which raises itself today in the world of Arabic type design. So I bring you the question of what is actually being discussed. It's the question of authenticity. What is Arabic and what is it supposed to look like? And for that, we also still need to remember all of these conceived or misconceived ideas of what the Middle East is supposed to be like and how we live today. And so we had the history of the evolution of Arabic typography was very much influenced by printing technology and movable type. The script had to be simplified because there was too much happening. If you look at this cannot be printed, obviously, except, you know, with lithography and other means. But to have it fit onto movable type, it needed to be simplified. And that has gotten us to a point today where the newspapers and books that we read on a day-to-day basis are using the more simpler versions of what the manuscripts are showing us. So we have much, much simpler forms. And the question is, like, now that technology does not require that simplification, do we keep it or not? Do we go back to the complex traditional forms or not? So all of these things are questions that I was facing. And that's why I started my PhD. So I wanted to see this style of naskh. Naskh is like a scribal writing style. And we have it in different versions. We read it in newspapers, in books, and then in the manuscripts as well. So it has different levels of complexity, and I wanted to see what is the effect of the complexity upon legibility. So that's where the PhD came in. So I decided to design a typeface family where you have the same basic shapes, but with an increasing level of complexity of how they connect to each other. And then I used an eye tracker and took it to Lebanon, tested with children in schools there, and then was measuring. So this is the dynamic, so the most complex version. If we zoom in, and you can see here with the stacking where things jump on top of each other, some characters become very wide, and then some characters as well here. Some things become very close to each other, as you can see over here. Some things, again, a bit like a swash. So there is a higher order of complexity in these shapes. And if we look at the three styles together, I know it's a little bit difficult for you because you don't read Arabic. So, and you'll probably have to take my word for this. The guys who read Arabic in the audience, there's a few, can vouch. You know, you can ask them later. So this is the same text in the three styles. And if you look at this word, and then look at it here, and then look at it here, there's a little bit more of jumping. If you look at this one, they're sitting side by side. Here, there's a little bit more movement, and here they start to jump on top of each other. So this is a more complex word shape. What I did, again, like I said, I measured fixations and found that the more complex style takes longer to read. It's a little bit intuitive, like, yeah, it's more complex, obviously it takes longer to read. But that is not so intuitive for designers practicing Arabic type design. So for some reason. So we are at a point where the more complex and also more elegant designs are taking longer to read. So what do we understand from that? That is one question. And you can see it here. So for example, this letter is now this one. This letter becomes this little bump, and the rounded shape here becomes this blob. And you can see very easily the difference between a side-by-side stacking of letters versus the diagonal jumping on top of each other kind of letter formation, word formation. And obviously it makes sense that the thing in black takes longer because there is more density in it, and there are more complexity in what is going on, and you need to understand exactly what is it, and you have to focus more. So yes, this takes longer to read. But then it doesn't mean if it's longer to read that we shouldn't use this. And that is the conclusion, that just the fact that it takes longer to read makes it bad. No, it just means that in the times when we want people to read quickly, we give them the simpler style. And the times where we can afford that people take the time to read, then we can give them the more elegant styles. So we do not have to negate one over the other. We need to be wide open and accept that we have different styles and that each will serve a different purpose. But then again, it doesn't mean that the simplified is ugly. In that example, it wasn't very pretty, I agree. But it is possible to design typefaces that look good, and they can be very simple. So one example of that is a project that I did for An-Nahar. So this is Gibran Touaini. He was the chief editor of An-Nahar in Beirut. It's the largest newspaper in Beirut, the oldest as well. And in 2005, he was assassinated by a car bomb. And he was also a member of parliament. So this was during a very dark period in the history of Lebanon. So this was during a period where every month there's a new bomb and somebody is assassinated. It got to a point where if people are driving and they see a politician coming with his, entourage, everybody moves over because they don't want to become casualties. And yeah, and even the first time I went to Lebanon after this period, every time I'm walking in the street, I look at the cars and I'm like any one of these could explode, any one of them, and I'm just walking next to it, and then you suddenly feel like I need to wear armor or something, this is just my skin is not enough, to protect, and so it was a difficult period, and Fortunately for An-Nahar, his daughter Naila Twaini ran for his seat in parliament. She won. She became one of the youngest members of parliament in Lebanon, and she initiated a redesign of An-Nahar. And the whole point of the redesign was to modernize the newspaper, but also send a message that the newspaper will not be intimidated, because they had the chief editor and one of its top writers assassinated. So you cannot keep doing this to free press. So that's not acceptable. And so she went to Mario Garcia, who's one of the leading newspaper designers worldwide. And then Mario came to me. So he is in the US, she's in Lebanon, I'm in Germany. And so we did like a big circle. And one day Mario wrote to me and he's like, Nadine, there's this newspaper in Lebanon called An-Nahar. They want me to redesign. Do you want to work on this? I was like, yes. So I grew up reading this newspaper. My dad sometimes writes for them. And you know, and I, of course, was aware of the history of what was going on. So, of course, I wanted to participate in this. And I recommended that we design a new headline typeface that can be the voice of the newspaper. And it can give this, one, modern look, but two, it can stand and give a bold stand and be very strong in visual impact. So I designed just one line at first. It's called Ya Jabal Ma Yahzak Rih, which means the mountain that will not be shaken by the wind. And that was the concept of the design. And I flew to Lebanon with Mario, presented this, we got the job. And then I went back to Germany, continued working, visited them several times. And the design itself is very sculptural in approach. It is simplified Arabic, obviously. I'll show you why later. But it has you see the movement of the pen. You see that at some places it's very thin, and at some, well, not very, but a little bit thin, and in some places very thick. It has this very simplified, rigid baseline. Yes, it is true. It has these sharp angles. It has the 90 degrees to give it force. But the overall design, it's almost like with tension that's barely contained, and very bold and very powerful. And that's what it meant to be. And when we look at the overall design, so this is simplified because the isolated and the final forms look the same. The initial and the middle also look the same. And then you have all of these characters that are, they remind you of the calligraphic movement. The pen, you see the movement of the pen, but it's highly disciplined, highly contained, and with a lot of energy. And when you put it on the page, it's very, very bold. And so the typeface was more than just a typeface. And this is one of my favorite custom projects, if not the favorite, because for once I was able, as a designer, to participate in the political discourse that it is not okay to assassinate people, that's one. It's not okay to target a free press. And I think, given what we talked about today already, this is in line. And that this is unacceptable. We can disagree with a newspaper. We cannot bomb its writers or kill them or shoot them in an office. This is just unacceptable. So, so this was part of that. And it felt good in a way to be able to have that message, to be able to participate as a design. And it's almost like design for a purpose rather than designed to make things look pretty, because we can do things that look pretty, but it's more powerful if there is a message behind it that, elevates the work to something beyond the outlines and the curves and how gorgeous things can be. And that is always my view on design anyway, that we can do more than we do now. So yeah, this is the first issue being printed. This was at 3 a.m. in the morning at the printer. The ink is not dry. My copy has fingerprints on it because we picked it up from the press and touched it. And but it was really nice, and I was working on the design of the newspaper as well with Mario. So it was really amazing to be part of that process and to be able to engage. And I would love more projects like these. Obviously, I have enough on my desk, but it's just nice to be able to give back, to participate in this kind of conversation. So that was the high. And then afterwards, I was sitting in Dubai, and then I was hearing a story about a woman who was raped and killed in Lebanon. And she's Christian, and the guy who killed her is Syrian. And the entire country was like, oh my God, the Syrians are coming to kill all the Christians. And which is idiotic. I mean, come on, seriously, guys, is this what you take out of it? Of all of this? That's what you think? But you know, so it's just the hopelessness of how the Lebanese sometimes understand politics. If there is a victim in this, it's the woman. The second victim is the lack of security that leads to abuse of women. We don't even have enough laws to protect women. We can't even pass a law in parliament to stop marital abuse and marital rape, not even that. So, you know, it's a whole level of degradation that goes on. And all they can think of, like, the Syrians, come on. So, you know, and the action of one person does not represent the country they come from. We should know that by now. So I was then in a low because everything I tried to do is useless. The reality sucks in the Middle East. And like, it gets worse on a daily basis. So, and we haven't had anything really hopeful happen in a while. So, like, very few silver linings, but in general, it just sucks and just gets worse. You know, this was before ISIS, so yeah. And they are halfway from Lebanon now, so anyway, so that was what I was thinking, but then, thank God, otherwise it's complete depression. I was thinking, like, okay, so if we cannot divorce typography from the reality it lives in, that maybe what we do is, instead of design for the shitty today, we design for, hopefully, a better tomorrow. And so again, fingers crossed for that. And I think that's the view that we need to take, because otherwise you just sit at home and cry. So yeah, so that's what we do. So now finally, type design. now we get to the type design part. There's no more politics, not so much. So so now we get to what we actually do, no? And what I do on a day-to-day basis. So half my job is legibility research, half my job is type design. What I'm showing here is just a selection of some of the things, some of my favorite projects. Koufiya is the typeface I did during my MA at Reading. It's the first typeface with an Arabic and a Latin designed at the same time by the same person, specifically for the purpose of harmonizing together. And I know during the day this morning we were talking about this. Now we'll see it a tiny bit more. The concept of the two is that the first and most important thing, we go back to politics, sorry for this. We need to understand that Arabic is very different from Latin and that it's okay to be different. We cannot try to make the Arabic Latin and we cannot try to make the Latin Arabic. That does not work. We need to accept the differences and that this is okay. But being different does not mean they cannot coexist and live together on the same page, or in the same country, or in the same house, or in the same room like here, right? So we need to be able to establish dialogue and elements of harmony and relationships between them without changing the essence of each. It's just that you open up the dialogue. And I have elements that come from the Latin and influence the Arabic a little bit. And I have elements from the Arabic that come into the Latin and influence it a little bit as well. But it's nothing that is controversial to the script. And they are equal, so we have, okay, they are, yeah, sound effects for equality. So, and so the two typefaces are equal. When we put them on the same page, they can live in harmony. If we put, and I don't show it here, if we put a Latin word inside an Arabic text, they fit together. You put them on the same page, there is no fighting. There is an acceptance that we can have them coexist, that they do not have to fight. And this is very important. And it's a cultural thing, it's a political thing. It's when we engage with somebody who is different from us, I think it's by social psychology a given that we think we are better than them, whoever we are. And we try to, like, no, it's us versus them, and it's always the other. But it's also important to remember the commonalities of humanity and the common things between us, and understand that it's okay to be different. I know I keep saying it, but I keep seeing people who try to make Arabic into Latin, or to try to make Latin into Arabic, or, you know, and it's just, you know, you don't have to. It's fine. And it's the same with our engagement. As long as we are on an equal footing and open to discussion and conversation, then it's okay. And all of this idea of Latin and Arabic together, it all started at my graduation in Lebanon, in AUB, and so American University of Beirut, and we had Edward Said, the late Edward Said. He came to speak, and he was saying, like, what can you do as Arabs today with your relationship to the West? You can either hate them and reject them completely, you can adore them and do everything they do, or you can engage in dialogue. And instead of talking about the clash of civilizations, which sometimes politicians like to promote, no, we need to engage in dialogue of civilizations. And then the trajectory of how we communicate is very different, because we want to engage in dialogue rather than engage in a shouting match that can only lead to more trouble. So, and this idea I took with me to type design. And that's what I try to do, that when we have Arabic and Latin, it cannot be that the Latin looks better than the Arabic because Arabic typography is so bad. So we need good quality Arabic typefaces to be on an equal level. And you as a graphic designer can decide to give hierarchy. We make one bigger than the other, we move them, we change color, that's okay, make one bold or not. But as a basis, when you design the typeface, they need to be equal. So that was my first project. Another project which came very soon after that is the Frutiger Arabic. And this one is a hybrid of styles. So it's a Koufiya and a Naskh, in case people are aware of these styles in Arabic. And with this one, what was important, I mean, Frutiger is one of the most popular typefaces, one of the best sellers, one of the, also best typefaces that have ever been designed, and is a gorgeous design by Adrian Frutiger, and I needed to do the Arabic, so no pressure. Yeah, and what I try to do in this design, of course, I cannot change the Latin; it exists already, and I don't think I would dare touch anything that Adrian Frutiger ever drew. So it's not for me; I cannot. And so we need to make an Arabic that can sit on, like, next to the Latin, be its companion, and make the same function. So if it's a typeface meant for signage, then the Arabic needs to work for signage. If it's supposed to be friendly, humanistic, something that can be very professional as well, very modern, contemporary looking, then the Arabic needs to do that as well. So when we're thinking of a dialogue and matching between Latin and non-Latin, it's not about, ooh, this is a nice curve, I copy it and I paste it there and then I pretend it's a letter. No, we try to understand what is the typeface supposed to do, and then we try to make that function happen in Arabic and bring the same personality in Arabic or Greek or Cyrillic or what else it is as we have in the other script. So here we're looking at them together, and as you can see, it's not the same shapes, they are all very different, but they can work together. And when we put them as you would on a signage, then it's okay, and they work together quite nicely. So this typeface is one of my most widespread, possibly because of the Frutiger, I would expect. And so you can see it so this is just a mock-up, but the typeface is, it's used at Dubai airport, so when you land, it's there. It's used for the largest bank in the UAE. Again, it's everywhere. And, so in Dubai and that region, it's like all over the place. And also funny, so at Dubai airport, so they have it everywhere, except one terminal, and they also have it on T-shirts. So the first time I was in Dubai, I was like, oh, look at my font. It's like every time you see your font in use, it's like you take one tequila shot. That's, yeah, no, really. It's like, yeah, so by the time you see, if you're in an airport and then you're seeing the typeface everywhere, like the first time I was like, oh my God. Yeah, so this is really cool. But what happened is I saw it on a T-shirt while queuing at immigration. And then I was like, is that my typeface? I was like, oh no, it is. And it's stitched. And I was like, did the stitch really get it right with the curves? And I was really, but it's on a guy's chest. And he thought I was checking him out because I was like, I kept looking like them. So type design can get you into trouble sometimes. So yeah, but when I noticed him looking at me, obviously I just went somewhere else. So yeah, what can you do? So so that is one of my nicest experiences with I also once almost caused a car accident the first time I saw it, because I had never ever seen my typeface in real life used anywhere. This was a long time ago, and we were in a car in Dubai and we were driving into a tunnel, and then I see it on a billboard and I start screaming, and then the guy gets scared, the one who's driving, but then I was like, no, my phone. I was like, what the fuck? So yeah. So sometimes type designers are also a little bit nuts. So that's the conclusion. And so in the picture here, this is Adrian Frutiger, the first time he saw my design. So that is, that was really nice that he could approve it and he loved it and had nice things to say that I'm too embarrassed to repeat. So, but it was really cool. So another project that I worked on also with Adrian Frutiger, so with the typefaces with Adrian Frutiger, usually I design them and he simply approves. He was too far away and not in the best of health, so we haven't had a chance to actually sit together. But so this is again for one of his typefaces, and it sits with the Univers. And in this case, the typeface is supposed to be very neutral, a little bit more static, a bit more repetitive in the design, and this was more Koufi when it comes to Arabic. And when we're using it, it's not really meant for long text because the pattern gets to be too harsh. So it's better for captions, for headlines, and smaller runs of text, so not too far. just a second. Yeah, so that was that, and again, it was another challenge, and I've done the Helvetica, but I don't show it here, and it's always difficult trying to find the balance, especially with these typefaces, because the responsibility is so big. But every new typeface is a new experiment, and sometimes some of them work better than others. But if you don't want to make the decision, you never stop, and you design the same typeface 100 times. So at some point, with every typeface, you have to say, okay, you know what? This is as good as it will ever be, and just give up. So, yeah. Another project, and I have to excuse myself. Usually in these talks, I show pictures of working with Herman Zapf, and I talk more about working with him, but if you guys know the news, I don't want to get into that, so let's just talk about the typeface itself. So the typeface is a naskh design, and is more classical, so this is one of the most classical things I've designed. And in this case, when we look at the Arabic and the Latin together, they are very different. So the dynamics of the Arabic, there is more movement. The Latin is more static. Obviously, the Latin has serifs, the Arabic does not, because Arabic does not have serifs. It does have these little things at the top. I don't know if you can see them, like a little flick at the top. That is okay, because that's part of what we do with the script. But we don't have serifs in Arabic, and we should not have them, because they don't belong in the movement of the pen. So, so in a design like this, which is more traditional with more contrast, you feel more the difference between the Latin and the Arabic. But it's okay, because if you try to make the Arabic with the same rhythm as the Latin, it will not be a book face. So here, again, the most important thing is that we look at the function and understand what is the function of this typeface. It's supposed to be a typeface, it could be used in books or similar things, and so the Arabic needs to be a book face. That is more important than it trying to copy what the Latin does. Yeah, it can sit on the same page, same weight, same optical size, very similar features, a little bit of relationship between the strokes, but it's not an imitation. In some typefaces, we are able to get very close to the Latin, but the more pen movement you have, then the more differentiation, because the pens move differently in Latin and in Arabic. This one is quite interesting. So when I was designing Palatino Arabic, I just designed it. I was working with Herman Zapf, and we worked together. And towards the end, I thought, like, you know what? In this style in Arabic, we have a rhombic system of proportions. And I had never known if my typeface fits or not. So I checked, does it fit these proportions? And it didn't. And then I made it fit, and it became a better design. And so it's lucky for us that we have these proportions that have been handed to us from like 900 years ago that we can still look at, so that we can recognize what are the good proportions of script styles like the naskh or the thuluth or all of these classical organic kind of styles in Arabic. So that is a really good reference for us. It doesn't mean that the typeface has to be calligraphic, no. It's just that these systems of proportions are really well thought and well made, and we can still look for them for inspiration. And this one is what you saw on the poster before. It says, Al-khutut la tanmu ala shajar, which means fonts don't grow on trees. I always show this, especially because in the Middle East we have a lot of piracy, and but also there's piracy everywhere. And it's always good to remind that there are people who make a living with typefaces, and when we license fonts, we are supporting the creativity and production of more typefaces. If we want better typefaces, we need to be able to support type designers to make a living. And yeah, cool, thank you. And this is very much the case in the Arab world. We don't have good typefaces at all, but then everybody's pirating fonts. Even my friends pirate my own fonts. So yeah, it's nice. Yeah, like they write me an email like, Nadine, I have Frutiger Arabic. I don't think we have a license. Like, no, you don't have a license, and you tell me, nice. So anyway, so I don't know what I'm supposed to reply to that. Like, yeah, it's okay, steal my work. So yeah, but it's important. We need to think of typefaces and type design as this is a profession. People put an effort into this, and we need to respect the time and their talents in producing this. And if we do not, then we do not get better things or better typefaces. So we really need to respect that. Anyway, so another project that we worked on is the Palatino Arabic. And this one has the same structure like Palatino Arabic, which is a very classical kind of book naskh. But this one has low contrast. So I don't know if you are able to see, there is not much difference between thick and thin. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yeah, so the letter forms themselves, they are very soft, they are very round, and the edges, it's almost like you are writing with a ballpoint. And that is a difference from the Palatino Arabic. So this was also really nice to work on because you get a flavor of Arabic which is very well thought, and it looks serious enough, but informal without it looking childish. When I was practicing graphic design, we had two typefaces if you want to be informal. Two, really. One is called Fadi and one is called Fashkul. I don't know if you remember. Yeah, totally. So we had two, and they both look horrible, like a disaster. So if you want to be informal, it's like using Comic Sans for everything which is informal. Everything. Comic Sans and an ugly version of Comic Sans. Right? This is what we had. If you want to be informal, you had that was it. And so this was fun because we could have something which you could use on packaging, on feminine products, on like it's softer. You can use it for children's books without it looking childish. It is serious enough, and you get that because the proportions are classical, but the treatment is soft and nice, and so you get this nice balance between something which looks respectable but is not too formal. So this was nice, and this is one of my favorite typefaces as well. So I like this one more than the Palatino Arabic because it's like cute. So yeah, and you see them here in text as well. And again, because this one is following the structure of the Palatino Arabic, it has more movement, so it's more dynamic than the Latin. But in this case, I was happy to accept that it's okay, they can be different, and just live with it. And if we want something which is too similar, we use something which is more like the Frutiger or the Univers, where the hand movement doesn't come in. And the thing is, like, because in the Latin itself, there is more hand movement. I mean, this is a typical Hermann Zapf touch, the elegance of the forms, the slenderness. This is like an informal version of Optima. You still see the little slender thinning of the eye and the vertical strokes and a little bit of flaring at the edge. Very soft, very nice. And so it needed something that had the reference to the tool as well. That's why we couldn't go with a structural naskh. It needed to have something that felt like the pen is still in there. And another project, now we jump extremes, is Leiden Next Arabic. Obviously, you might know the Leiden Next. This is a very, very architectural kind of mechanical style. Architects love Leiden, by the way. So if you have architect as a client, give them Leiden and you will never have to hear from them again. So that's like the easiest way to please an architect, put everything in Leiden and like light. Yeah. So so in this case, the Arabic feels much closer to the Latin. And if we look at them together, you don't feel as much differentiation between the Arabic and the Latin. And I don't know what it's like to look at this from the eyes of someone who doesn't read Arabic, and I know that. So I don't know if it's hard for you to feel how much closer these are than, with Palatino. But if we're looking, it's the fact that the movement becomes very mechanical. So you lose the influence of the pen, and because things look mechanical is the same in Latin or in Arabic. Yeah, it's a machine, it's not the hand anymore, and it's not a tool which is tracing things. And this is why in typefaces like these, it's easier to find a match between the Arabic and the Latin. This is one of the few cases where you might actually find common curves between the two, because the curves have been abstracted and become so mechanical that they can be repeated in the Arabic and in the Latin. Another project, which is also one of my favorites, is the Sony project. So the typeface is called SST. This is part of a huge project we did at Monotype. It had Latin, Greek, Cyrillic, Thai, Hebrew, Arabic, Japanese, and I think maybe Devanagari as well, I don't remember. But basically, it was a huge project with designers working all over the globe. And the idea, again, is to have this suite of typefaces that can project the Sony visual and identity across all of these different scripts. So I was working on the Arabic, we had other people do the Latin and everything else. And the Arabic is, it's like, again, a bit of a hybrid between Naskh and Koufi, and a little bit more Koufi than Naskh. But it's also one of my best designs, I think. It's there's a kind of harmony when you look at it. Like it feels calm, and I like that effect. But obviously this was designed 2 years ago, the Frutiger was designed 10 years ago or more. So yeah, so at least for me, I feel the difference in my designs between my early typefaces and the later ones. And I hope that's a good sign because it means I get better. Yeah, but again here, we try to communicate the same brand identity across the different languages, and that's very important. And so this now, like you can find it in the PlayStation, which is really cool. So it's just nice to see my fonts in PlayStation. That was yeah, it's just, another tequila shot. So yeah. Another project is Zapfino Arabic. We released this in February this year. And yeah, this is, and I always refer to it, is my Mount Everest. I have never ever in my life designed anything this hard, ever. And I always say, like, this is designed with blood. Yeah, so like, you know, like when you build something and your hands get bloody, like this was like blood all over me. It's just too hard. It's for reasons that I don't have time to get into now. Practically an invented calligraphic style, but it's a typeface, so it's a bit like the other way around. And with open type features, so technical things that are very complex, way more than I thought I could do. And it needed to capture the elegance of Zapfino. And that is not easy. Zapfino is a masterpiece. It's been abused and overabused and overused, but if you look at the design, it's gorgeous. And it's because it's gorgeous that people have used it so much. So it's on every wine label, it's everywhere, every Hallmark card, but you know, but this is interesting because this is where you challenge yourself as a designer, because I didn't want to do just another companion to a Latin popular sans serif, but I wanted to do something where it's just, there is more to it. And this is a typeface which is, it brings more hand movement, more elegance, back slanted to work with the Latin, brings in a little bit of naskh and nastaliq in terms of style, so it's a mix between two, it's a hybrid, and every decision design-wise was hard. There was nothing easy except the name. I only had to add Arabic next to the Zapfino. That was it, that was the easiest part. Everything else was just, yeah. And then when we look at the overall design, like I hope that we manage to have the same look and feel that we have in the Latin. If we put them side by side, there are things in the Latin that don't exist in the Arabic. For example, all of these overhanging arches, we could not bring them in the Arabic. This was no way, because this movement doesn't exist in Arabic. So it would have been a gimmick. You know, it's like going to the US and wearing a Texas hat just because you're in the US, right? If you are wearing Arab headdress, like a whole Arab typical thing, you don't put a cowboy hat on top just because you're in there, right? You will look funny. So you need to be authentic to the style you're trying to capture. And so the Arabic does not have that. I actually tried, like really out of desperation, anything, but it didn't work, so I took that out. Even the contrast is different. In the Latin, there are more thins that are thin than in the Arabic. The thins in the Arabic are not as thick, but otherwise the Arabic breaks. So we could not take that thin from the Latin to the Arabic. If you look at the details, you'll see that we don't have the kind of thins you have in the A. And yeah, so that was that. I have something very quick to show you, and then we're done. So let's go there, and then I should have made it into, so. Merci. Yeah. So, merci. So I still have 2 slides. So shall I? Okay. There's more. Wait. There's like 2 more slides. No, what I wanted to say is like with that typeface, I needed to show the movement, and because it was such an integral part. That's why I needed to animate. So I refreshed my tricks in After Effects and had to do this. And for last words, just to sum up, when we're looking at typefaces, we're looking at details, but we're also looking at the big forms. And sometimes we can go very simple with minor differentiation, and that's what's giving the flavor. And sometimes we can go very complex and with very elegant movements. And so this is all a richness and a heritage, whether it is in Arabic or in Latin or anywhere. We have this potential to explore different styles depending on what we need them to do. But the thing that we always need to remember is that the typefaces belong in an environment. So the text here, it says hiya al-hayat, it is life, because that's what typography does. It comes to life in a context. The letters we draw do not become alive until somebody has used them, and they are being used in a context, and then you cannot divorce the typeface from the context it lives in. So when we design a typeface, when we design a logo or a brochure or whatever it is, we need to always remember where will that object live and how will it fit with its environment. And that's it. Merci. Merci beaucoup.